Researchers at Lawrence Livermore Lab have developed a better, faster DNA analysis system, one that will enable you to detect whether you test positive for HIV and many other diseases during a single hour visit to the doctor, one that will even allow criminal investigators to test for DNA matches at the scene of a crime. News Center 4's Sally SCHARF explains.
Small enough to fit in a large briefcase, inside you'll find the first portable battery-operated DNA analysis kit.
We built a better, cheaper, faster mousetrap, so to speak, for DNA analysis.
Inventor Alan Northrup has spent his last 4 years at the Lawrence Livermore Lab perfecting the device. It's faster in that DNA results in the detection of other bacteria or disease takes only 20 minutes compared to 3 hours. And the equipment isn't nearly as expensive.
Now it's a matter of a few $1,000s versus maybe $100,000. So it's got a lot more. It's going to bring this technology closer to where the applications are.
Recall the latest E. coli scare? This device could test a bottle of liquid on the spot for contamination. And remember the delays in getting DNA results during the O.J. Simpson trial? The new kit would take less than a half hour to detect a DNA match. And in hospitals and clinics, it will potentially allow patients to leave with results to an AIDS test. The Army is currently using the only other kit in existence. Military investigators take it along to help identify human remains. And the technology will only get smaller. Researchers are currently perfecting a handheld device, and one day devices as small as this credit card will be used to instantly detect certain disease. And so you can expect to hear more about this incredible shrinking DNA test kit in the years to come. Its complicated workings no longer confined to a laboratory, but possible in even the most remote settings. In Livermore, Sally SCHARF, News Center 4.
The civil trial of O.J. Simpson is in recess until Tuesday. The plaintiffs in the wrongful death suit will resume their case at that time. Their aim, to cast doubt on testimony Simpson has given. To that end, they have submitted a list of 32 planned witnesses. They include Simpson friend Al Cowlings and ex-girlfriend Paula Barbieri. Millions of people watched the televised coverage of the Simpson criminal trial last year, and no doubt many of us were confused by the DNA evidence. Well, now a new machine no bigger than a suitcase could make DNA clues easier to obtain and maybe easier to understand. Here's CNN's Don Knapp.
From O.J. Simpson to Odwalla juice, investigators build theories on clues the size of molecules. Now, a take-it-anywhere suitcase-sized DNA analyzer promises to expand the microscopic world of evidence.
The portable machine will detect on the fly, so to speak. Each cycle, we'll look at the DNA, and we can get an answer within 25 minutes.
DNA works like a blueprint for all living things. Because it's unique, it identifies like a fingerprint. It's difficult to find, or was until the polymerase chain reaction, or PCR process, came along. Technicians at Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory built a smaller version of the standard lab machine that amplifies DNA and added a laptop computer. This tiny piece of silicon helps make it possible to put a DNA analyzer in a suitcase. It's only a little electric heater, and it took 2 years to develop, but it's the key to the PCR process of duplicating DNA. Heating and cooling DNA strands in the presence of an enzyme forces the DNA to break apart and clone itself over and over, making it easier to analyze. The computer reads the light generated when a special added chemical bonds with the DNA to learn if the sample matches the known DNA. But the prototype portable analyzer still needs a full-size laboratory to prepare samples for testing.
What do you need to have happen to make this thing truly portable so the detectives could take it out to Rockingham and get the evidence on the spot?
What you'd need to do is develop primers and probes that were basically a freeze-dried type of substance.
Forensic scientist George Sensabaugh likes the low-cost, high-speed, and volume possibilities, but he doubts anyone will ever take a DNA analyzer to a crime scene.
The primary objective of investigating crime scenes is to document the crime scene, to collect the evidence and preserve it in a way so that it can be analyzed under the secure conditions of a laboratory.
The machine was developed for the Army for use in identifying human remains. Food microbiologist George Chang sees the portable DNA machine as a big step, but well short of what he'd need to search out bad apples.
Ideally, we'd like to have some kind of magic beam we could shine on something and say, oh yeah, there's E. coli 0157H7. And maybe someday there will be something like that. But we're a long way from that right now.
From ABC, this is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings. Sitting in tonight, Forrest Sawyer.
When we come back, the DNA lab in a briefcase. Our report tonight on cutting-edge technology looks at a fringe benefit from the end of the Cold War. It comes from a government lab which once designed nuclear bombs. Today, that same laboratory has produced a remarkable device that can instantly detect deadly bacteria. Here's ABC's Jack Smith.
In the Gulf War, this device could have alerted soldiers right away to the presence of Saddam Hussein's biological weapons. What is it? The world's first portable, battery-operated analyzer of DNA, the basic building block of life that identifies all organic matter. What scientists have done here at the Livermore Lab in California is to pack an entire chemistry lab into this little briefcase. It works in a matter of minutes and promises to revolutionize the detection of everything from biological weapons to human DNA. This is how it works. A sample in a tiny test tube is repeatedly heated and cooled inside a miniaturized testing facility, really a hollowed-out computer chip. The process triggers a chemical reaction in which the amount of DNA in the sample grows until it's large enough to be detected.
Any biological sample that you want to identify and determine how much there is can be done with this technique.
And it can be done faster?
Right.
Cheaper?
And in the field.
Portability means that inspectors can test food for contamination, doctors verify infections like Lyme disease, and police identify blood, all at the scene. Today, this would have to be done in a lab, a cumbersome process that can take weeks and uses equipment costing hundreds of thousands of dollars. But scientists say the new device will cost less than $1,000, run tests in minutes, and by the time it's ready for market in 2 years, be small enough to fit in your hand. Something that small in the future could do the work of that lab in the OJ trial?
Exactly.
Scientists call it DNA on a chip, the first of many applications, they say, as silicone chip technology revolutionizes chemistry and biology. Jack Smith, ABC News, Livermore, California.
Portable DNA lab that will fit in your pocket. And crime fighting will never be the same. DNA testing takes to the field. These stories and more right here on The New Edge.
What if Detective Van Adder didn't have to carry O.J. Simpson's blood back to the lab? What if he could have tested it on the spot? A new generation of DNA analyzer is about to revolutionize crime solving and drug testing procedures.
The analysis of DNA, the genetic blueprint of all living things, could lead to significant advances in the containment of disease. The problem is, until recently, the process required a large amount of equipment that was found only in very sophisticated labs.
What we've been interested in doing is getting that process out into the field with a portable instrument that allows testing at the site.
What Alan Northrup and his team at Lawrence Livermore National Lab have done is miniaturize the equipment involved in a technique called PCR amplification.
PCR stands for polymerase chain reaction, and it's a way of making billions of copies cheaply and efficiently of a strand of DNA, a strand that otherwise might be too small to test.
Little light sources, LEDs, have been developed that are the right color for doing some of these fluorescent techniques that you can use for actually measuring the DNA in the reaction chamber. You pre-treat the sample with reagents, then you typically have to spin it in a centrifuge like this. And then you would take the sample like this and put it right in the instrument, like this. Put the light source on, and you would start the process running, and it would start heating and cooling and collecting data from the fluorescence each cycle.
With this technology, it's going to be real-time, online. A person takes a sample and knows within a few minutes the answer to the question which they're asking.
Lawrence Livermore Lab built this prototype for the Army, which has been looking for a portable device that can be used to identify victims of war, infectious diseases, and potential biological warfare agents.
If we can put the most advanced technologies in the hands of a laboratory such as the Theater Army Medical Laboratory, we can start to have an impact directly on the care of the individual soldier.
The benefits aren't restricted to the battlefield. The lab is already working on a handheld device cheap enough for civilian use.
We have actually packaged the electronics and the chips into a unit this size that goes into a box like this. And but it still needs a computer to run it. It's definitely capable to be miniaturized.
When this new PCR amplification becomes portable and affordable, a health inspector will be able to take a device something like this right out of Star Trek and inspect produce in the field, meat right in the packing plant. You and I should be able to take a beverage just before we consume it and check it for virtually any infectious microbe. In fact, if it's a virus that's bothering you, a doctor will be able to tell you what it is right there in the office.
We're now designing and building instruments that will eventually culminate in devices like this, where you have a handheld instrument with disposable cartridges. So the typical way you might use an instrument like this is to take a sample of blood, put it in this cartridge, insert the cartridge. The cartridge is designed to detect different classes of organisms, HIV, hepatitis, salmonella, E. coli, whatever it's designed to detect.
The handheld version is still a few years away from becoming a commercial product, but soon you may see in your own doctor's office devices similar to the ones the docs use on the Starship Enterprise.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight.
On the subject of clues, most people now know that DNA plays a critical role in criminal investigations. A hair follicle, even a cigarette butt, can make the connection between a criminal and a crime. ABC's Ned Potter reports tonight on technology that will take DNA testing to a whole new level.
When police in the O.J. Simpson case found those famous blood samples at the crime scene, they had to send them all the way from California to Maryland for DNA testing. The process took days and left room for Simpson's lawyers to argue that police had switched the samples to frame him.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Orenthal James Simpson, not guilty of the crime of murder.
In the future, such a case might come out very differently. It is now possible for police to go to a crime scene with a DNA lab the size of a briefcase, or even smaller. It can read genetic material, perhaps from blood or saliva that police have found, in less than half an hour.
Any biological sample that you want to identify and determine how much there is can be done with this technique.
Here's how it works. A tiny sample in a test tube is repeatedly heated and cooled inside a miniature testing chamber, essentially a hollowed-out computer chip. That triggers a chemical reaction, multiplying the sample in size so it can be read by electronic detectors. The technology has all sorts of uses. For instance, the military can test for viruses that might infect their troops, or investigators can check out bioterrorism threats to see if they are genuine.
We've shown that we can do it 4 to 5 times faster with this portable instrument than with the commercial system.
The moral and legal questions may still swirl around DNA testing, but the technology is way ahead of them. Ned Potter, ABC News, New York.